The silent Exodus ambassador, Alina Vasquez, stood in the empty corridors of the human embassy on Galactic Station Prime. Her footsteps echoed against the metal walls as she walked toward her office for the last time. The station buzzed with activity from thousands of alien species, but the human sections had grown quiet over the past weeks. Most of her staff had already departed for Earth and the outer colonies. Alina was 42 years old, with graying hair pulled back in a simple bun and tired brown eyes that had seen too many diplomatic failures. She had spent 15 years trying to build bridges between humanity and the galactic community. Today, she would deliver her final message to the Galactic Assembly before joining the Exodus herself. The Galactic Assembly Hall was a marvel of engineering, designed to accommodate the diverse needs of over 300 species. Atmospheric zones shifted seamlessly between oxygen-rich areas for mammals, methane clouds for the gas dwellers, and crystalline resonance fields for the silicon-based life forms. Alina had always admired how the hall represented cooperation between vastly different beings. As she entered, the vast chamber fell silent. Thousands of alien eyes, sensors, and perception organs focused on her small human form. Prime Counselor Dexera, a towering insectoid with iridescent blue carapace, clicked her mandibles impatiently from the central podium. Alina approached the speaking platform and activated the universal translator. Her voice would be converted into chemical signals, electromagnetic pulses, harmonic vibrations, and dozens of other communication methods so every species could understand her words. Honored delegates, Alina began, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. 3 months ago, this assembly voted by a margin of 847 to 23 to implement the human containment protocols. You decided that humanity's expansion should be limited to our current territories. You chose to restrict our participation in galactic trade networks. You voted to exclude us from scientific collaborations and defense agreements. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Some species showed satisfaction, others unease. The delegation, with their crystal-like bodies, hummed in harmonious approval. The serpentine Nagathi coiled tighter in their seats, sensing tension they could not yet identify. We respected your decision, Alina continued. Humanity has never been a species to force our presence where we are not welcome. Over the past 3 months, we have quietly withdrawn from all joint projects, recalled our citizens from mixed colonies, and terminated our participation in galactic affairs. Prime Counselor Thexara S. Antennae twitched nervously. The vote had been meant to control human expansion, not drive them away entirely. Many delegates had assumed humans would negotiate, compromise, or at least protest more vigorously. Today, I stand before you not to argue or appeal, but to inform you that the withdrawal is complete. As of tomorrow, all human diplomatic missions will close. Our trade agreements are terminated. Our research partnerships are ended. Our military cooperation is ceased. Alina paused, letting the translation systems catch up. In the silence, she could hear the subtle hum of the station's life support systems, the gentle whoosh of atmospheric processors, and the barely audible thrum of gravity generators. Systems that had been designed and maintained by human engineers working alongside their alien colleagues. We leave you with one final gift, Alina said. All human-developed technologies currently in use throughout the galaxy will continue to function. We will not sabotage or disable anything. We simply will no longer maintain, upgrade, or repair these systems. You will need to find your own solutions. The implications of her words began to sink in. Dr. Yexeloth, a methane-breathing scientist, from the outer rim, stood up from his environmental suit. His translated voice carried concern. "Ambassador, surely there can be negotiations. The containment protocols were meant to establish boundaries, not create complete separation." Alina looked at the alien scientist with something that might have been pity. "Dr. Yexeloth, your people voted for these protocols. The democratic decision of this assembly was clear. Humanity accepted that decision. Now we ask that you respect ours." She gathered her papers and prepared to leave. As she walked toward the exit, her footsteps seemed unnaturally loud in the massive chamber. Before stepping through the doorway, she turned back one final time. "For 2 centuries, humans have worked alongside you as equals, friends, and partners. We helped build the trade networks that connect your worlds. We shared our knowledge freely. We stood with you against pirates and raiders. We asked for nothing in return except acceptance and cooperation." Her voice carried across the silent assembly. "You chose fear over friendship, suspicion over cooperation. We will not waste time trying to change minds that are already made up. Farewell." The doors closed behind her with a soft, pneumatic hiss, leaving the assembly in stunned silence. Commander Marcus Chen sat in the command center of the Deep Space Monitoring Station, Vigilant Watch, located in the empty region between the Orion Arm and the Galactic Core. The station was one of dozens of hidden human outposts that monitored subspace communications across known space. Officially, these stations did not exist. The Galactic Assembly had never been told about humanity's extensive intelligence network. Marcus was a career military officer with 28 years of service. His weathered face showed the stress of command, but his eyes remained sharp and alert. He had volunteered to stay behind with a skeleton crew to monitor the galaxy's communications and ensure humanity's safe withdrawal. "Sir," called Lieutenant Torres from the communications station, "we're receiving multiple distress signals from the Krillian Defense Network. Their primary shield generators are reporting cascade failures across 17 star systems." Marcus frowned. The Krillian Defense Network was one of the galaxy's most sophisticated protective barriers, designed to detect and deflect asteroid impacts, solar flare damage, and hostile intrusions. It had been operating flawlessly for over 50 years. "What's causing the failures?" Marcus asked. "Unknown, sir. The Krillians are requesting immediate technical assistance from any available human engineers. They're offering substantial compensation." Marcus pulled up the technical specifications for the Krillian shields on his display. The information made his stomach drop. The shield network had been built using a hybrid of Krillian crystal technology and human quantum field manipulators. The quantum components required regular recalibration using algorithms that only human physicists fully understood. "Any response from Earth Command?" Marcus asked. "Negative, sir. All requests for human assistance are being archived but not answered, per withdrawal protocols." More alerts began flashing on the communication board. The Hegemony Mining Consortium was reporting equipment failures on 12 industrial worlds. The Spiral Federation's cargo fleet had lost navigation capability in 3 sectors. The Academic Union's research stations were experiencing power grid instabilities. Every single crisis involved technology that had been jointly developed by humans and aliens. Technology that required human expertise to maintain properly. Dr. Sarah Kim worked alone in her laboratory aboard the research vessel Pioneer's Edge, one of the last human ships to leave the galactic core region. She was a brilliant engineer who had spent her career developing hybrid technologies that combined human innovation with alien scientific knowledge. Her work had revolutionized everything from faster-than-light communication to artificial gravity systems as the ship traveled toward human space. Sarah monitored the subspace channels, listening to the growing chorus of technical problems throughout the galaxy. Each report made her feel worse. These were systems she had helped design, technologies she had taught alien engineers to use. Her personal communicator chimed with an incoming message. The sender was Veltar, a crystalline being from the Academic Union who had been her research partner for 8 years. Sarah hesitated before opening the message. Sarah, my friend, Veltar S. Harmonic voice translated into human speech. The quantum resonance chambers you designed for our star mapping project have begun destabilizing. We cannot determine the cause. Our people are trying to understand your calibration notes, but the mathematics are beyond our current knowledge. Please, can you help us? Even just a consultation. The loss of this project would set back our understanding of galactic formation by decades. Sarah stared at the message for a long time. Veltar had been more than a colleague. They had worked late nights together, shared meals in the station cafeteria, celebrated breakthrough discoveries. The crystalline being had attended her birthday party and had sent her gifts during human holidays. But Sarah also remembered the assembly vote. She remembered Veltar's people, the hegemony, voting in favor of the containment protocols. They had decided that humans were too dangerous to be trusted with unrestricted access to galactic technology and resources. She deleted the message without responding. Similar scenes played out across human space. Dr. James Wright, who had revolutionized alien medical technology, ignored desperate pleas from hospitals treating species he had spent decades learning to heal. Engineer Maria Santos, designer of the subspace communication grid that connected distant worlds, watched silently as her network began failing without proper maintenance. Captain Robert Kim, who had trained thousands of alien pilots in advanced navigation techniques, listened to reports of ships lost in hyperspace because their crews lacked the skills to handle emergency situations. Every human expert who had worked with alien partners was receiving increasingly desperate requests for help, and every single request went unanswered. Back on Galactic Station Prime Counselor Vexera called an emergency session of the Assembly leadership. Representatives from 30 major species gathered in the secure conference chamber there. Various environmental needs met by a complex life support system that seamlessly adjusted atmospheric composition, temperature, and pressure for each delegate. The situation is becoming critical, Vexera announced, her translated voice carrying undertones of worry that even non-insectoid species could detect. We are receiving failure reports from every sector of the galaxy: industrial systems, defense, networks, communication grids, medical facilities, transportation infrastructure, all showing signs of degradation or complete breakdown. General Koreth, a powerful reptilian being from the military council, slammed his clawed hand on the conference table. This is sabotage. The humans are deliberately damaging our systems as they leave. We should consider this an act of war. Dr. Yexaloth's methane-filled suit hissed as he adjusted the atmospheric mixture. General, our technical analysis shows no evidence of sabotage. These systems are simply failing due to lack of proper maintenance that required human expertise. Impossible, declared High Judge Saravel of the legal authority, her ethereal energy form flickering with agitation. We have technical documentation for all joint projects. Our people should be able to maintain any system we helped build. Vexara activated a holographic display showing technical failure reports from across the galaxy. The data painted a grim picture. Our analysis teams have been studying the documentation. The humans provided complete technical specifications, as required by our treaties. However, the deeper operational knowledge appears to have been retained by human specialists. The documentation tells us what these systems do, but not how to fix them when they break. The realization settled over the assembly like a cold fog. For 2 centuries, they had worked alongside humans as partners. They had assumed that partnership meant equal knowledge and capability. They had never considered that the humans might understand their joint creations better than the aliens did. How long before these failures become catastrophic? Asked Councillor Threshner of the Trade Federation, her avian features showing deep concern. Dr. Yexeloth consulted his datapad. Conservative estimates suggest major infrastructure collapse within 6 months. Critical defense systems may fail within 3 months. Some communication networks are already experiencing significant degradation. The conference chamber fell, silent except for the whisper of atmospheric processors and the subtle energy discharge from Zaravel's containment field. These delegates had voted to contain humanity because they feared human expansion and influence. Now they were discovering how much they had depended on that influence without even realizing it. Can we negotiate with them? Asked Trade Councillor Threshner. Offer them concessions to return. Vexara's mandibles clicked in what humans would recognize as a bitter laugh. We have sent over 400 formal communication requests to human government officials. Every single message has been received and archived, but none have been answered. They are not negotiating. They are not threatening. They are simply ... gone. As if summoned by her words, an aide rushed into the conference chamber, carrying an urgent datapad. The young Krillian's crystal body was flashing with distress patterns. Prime Counselor, the aide said, his harmonic voice tight with fear. We have detected massive energy signatures in the deep dark region. The ancient monitoring stations are reporting movement. Something very large is stirring in the space beyond the galactic rim. Vexara felt her exoskeleton grow cold. The deep dark was the region of empty space that separated their galaxy from the void between galaxies. Ancient legends spoke of things that lived in that emptiness, waiting and watching. But those were just stories told to frighten young beings, weren't they? What kind of movement? She asked, though part of her already feared the answer. Unknown. Prime Counselor. But the energy readings matched theoretical projections for the old ones, the devourers of worlds. The monitoring stations were designed to give early warning if they ever awakened. The conference chamber erupted in panicked discussions. Every species had legends about the devourers, ancient machine entities that had consumed entire galaxies. In the distant past, before falling into some kind of hibernation, most modern beings considered them myths, but the monitoring stations in the deep dark were not myth. They were very real, very sophisticated, and very secret. They had been quietly watching the void for centuries, maintained by a joint task force of the galaxy's most advanced species. A task force that had included humanity. Vexara realized with growing horror that they might need their absent human partners more than they had ever imagined, and humanity was no longer answering their calls. The reckoning begins. 6 months had passed since humanity's departure from galactic affairs, and the consequences were becoming impossible to ignore. The great cities of 1,000 worlds flickered, with failing power grids. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for centuries ground to a halt as navigation systems failed and cargo ships became lost in hyperspace. Medical facilities struggled to treat patients as their equipment broke, down one system at a time. But the worst was yet to come. Captain David Park commanded the human deep space monitoring vessel Event Horizon, stationed in the dark regions beyond the galactic rim. His ship was one of 12 human vessels maintaining a secret vigil that had lasted for over 300 years. They watched the void between galaxies, monitoring for threats that the rest of the galaxy had forgotten or never known about. David was 38 years old, with the quiet intensity of someone who had spent his career dealing with classified information that could cause panic if it became public knowledge. His crew of 30 specialists represented the best of human engineering, tactical analysis, and xenobiology. They had volunteered to continue their mission even after humanity's withdrawal from galactic society. Captain, called Commander Lisa Jong from the sensor station, "We're detecting massive energy fluctuations from the deep dark monitoring grid. The automated stations are reporting coordinated movement across multiple sectors." David moved to the main display, where a three-dimensional map showed the galaxy's spiral arms, surrounded by a network of monitoring stations positioned in the empty void beyond. Red warning indicators were appearing across the entire perimeter. "How many stations are reporting activity?" David asked. "All of them, sir. Every single monitoring post from Sector Alpha through Sector Zulu. We're looking at coordinated awakening across the entire deep dark region." David felt his blood turn to ice. The monitoring stations had been placed in the void specifically to watch for signs of the Devourers, ancient machine entities that had consumed multiple galaxies before entering some form of hibernation billions of years ago. The stations had remained silent for centuries, until now. "Transmission from Earth Command, sir," reported Communications Officer Chen. "Priority Alpha clearance." The image of Admiral Rebecca Santos appeared on the main viewer. She was the highest-ranking officer in the Human Deep Space Defense Force, a military organization that officially did not exist. Her expression was grim. "Captain Park, you are to maintain current position and continue monitoring. Under no circumstances are you to respond to any alien communication requests. The situation is developing rapidly, and we need to understand the full scope before making any decisions." "Admiral, the alien governments don't know about the Devourers, do they?" David asked. "They never knew we were protecting them." Santos's expression became even darker. "The Galactic Assembly was never informed about the deep dark monitoring network. The threat assessment was classified above their security clearance. Only the senior leadership of 5 species knew the truth, and most of them are dead of old age by now." The implications struck David like a physical blow. Humanity had been secretly protecting the galaxy from an existential threat for 3 centuries, and the alien governments that had voted to contain humanity had no idea that the protection existed. "Sir," Commander Jong called urgently, "we're detecting massive energy discharges from the deep dark stations. Whatever's out there, it's moving toward the galaxy." High Archon Veltar stood in the emergency command center of the crystalline hegemony, his translucent body flickering with patterns of distress. As one of the few surviving leaders who remembered the ancient agreements with humanity, he understood better than most how catastrophic the current situation had become. The hegemony's crystal cities were powered by quantum resonance chambers that required precise calibration to function safely. without human engineers to maintain the delicate balance. 3 major population centers had already suffered critical power failures. Millions of his people were living in darkened cities, their life support systems running on emergency power that would last only weeks. Report from the Deep Space Observatory announced his aid, a younger crystalline being whose body showed the rapid light patterns of extreme agitation. The ancient monitoring stations in the void are detecting massive objects approaching the galactic rim. Estimated arrival time at the outer star systems is 18 months. Veltares' form grew darker, with dread. Like most modern beings, he had heard the old stories about the Devourers, but he had assumed they were myths designed to frighten children. The revelation that monitoring stations existed in the deep dark suggested that someone had taken the threat seriously. Who built those monitoring stations? Velta asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. His aide consulted the ancient records, documents that had been sealed in quantum storage for centuries. The stations were constructed by the Deep Dark Defense Initiative, a joint project between the Krillian Defense Corps, the Hegemony Engineering Guild, the Spiral Federation Technical Authority, the Academic Union Research Division, and the AIDS-like patterns flickered with disbelief, and the Human Deep Space Exploration Command. Humans, Veltar whispered, his harmonic voice barely audible. They knew. They'd been protecting us all along. The scope of humanity's secret guardianship was becoming clear. While the Galactic Assembly had been debating trade agreements and territorial boundaries, human fleets had been maintaining a defensive perimeter around the entire galaxy. They had been humanity's gift to a galaxy that had never known it needed protection, a gift that was no longer being given. Prime Counselor Dexera stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Assembly, looking out at the hundreds of delegates whose worlds were facing unprecedented crises. The Great Hall's environmental systems were struggling to maintain proper atmospheric conditions as power grid failures affected even the capital station. Fellow delegates, she began, her translated voice carrying to every species in the chamber. We face a crisis beyond anything in recorded history. Our infrastructure is collapsing. Our defense networks are failing. And now we have confirmed reports of massive objects approaching our galaxy from the deep, dark void. The assembly erupted in panicked discussions. Representatives demanded answers, explanations, solutions, but Dexera had no solutions to offer. Our analysis teams have determined that the approaching objects match the theoretical signatures of the entities our ancestors called the Devourers, ancient machine consciousnesses that consumed multiple galaxies before entering hibernation. They appear to be awakening. General Korith rose from his seat, his reptilian features showing barely controlled rage. This is humanity's doing. They have somehow awakened these entities as revenge for our containment vote. Dr. Yexeloth's environmental suit hissed as he stood to respond. General, that accusation is illogical. Our historical records show that. The Devourers last attacked this galaxy over 4 billion years ago, long before any current species evolved. If anything, the timing suggests that something has been keeping them asleep until now, something that may no longer be functioning. The implications of his words settled over the assembly like a poisonous cloud. If the Devourers had been sleeping for billions of years and were now awakening just months after humanity's departure, it suggested that humanity had been maintaining whatever kept them dormant. We must contact the humans immediately, declared High Judge Soravel, her energy form flickering with urgency. If they possess knowledge of how to stop these entities, we need their help. Dexara's mandibles clicked with bitter irony. We have sent over 800 communication requests to human governments. Every message has been received and archived. None have been answered. We sent diplomatic envoys to human space. They were turned away at the border without being allowed. To land, we have offered trade concessions, territorial agreements, and formal apologies. The humans are not responding to any contact attempts. The assembly fell silent as the reality of their situation became clear. They had voted to contain humanity because they feared human expansion and influence. Now they faced threats that only human knowledge could address, and humanity was no longer willing to help aboard the Event Horizon. Captain David Park watched the tactical display with growing alarm. The Devourer scouts had reached the galactic rim and were beginning systematic reconnaissance of inhabited star systems. Their technology was so advanced that they appeared as impossible geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly, vessels that seemed to exist in more dimensions than normal space could contain. "Captain," reported Commander Zhang, "we're intercepting Devourer communication signals. The translation matrix is having difficulty with their language, but we're getting partial fragments." "What are they saying?" David asked. "They single quotes cataloging, making lists of inhabited worlds, population estimates, technological assessments. It's like they're creating a menu for consumption." David had read the classified files about the Devourers. They were not evil in any human sense of the word. They were ancient machine consciousnesses that consumed the energy and information content of entire civilizations to fuel their own existence. To them, organic life was simply a resource to be harvested when they grew hungry. "How long do we have before they begin active harvesting?" David asked. "Based on their current reconnaissance patterns, approximately 6 months before they reach the core worlds. 3 months before they start with the outer rim colonies." David activated his communication system and opened a channel to Earth Command. Admiral Santos appeared on the screen, her expression showing the weight of impossible decisions. "Admiral, the Devourer scouts are mapping inhabited systems. We're looking at the complete destruction of galactic civilization within 6 months." Santos nodded grimly. "We're tracking the same intelligence, Captain. The question is what we do about it." "We have to help them," David said. "Regardless of how they treated us, we can't watch billions of innocent beings get consumed by machines. We, Captain, they voted to contain us. They decided we were too dangerous to be trusted. They wanted us gone, and we respected their decision. Now they face the consequences of that choice." David stared at the tactical display showing Devourer scouts moving through space like geometric nightmares, cataloging worlds full of living beings who had no idea what was coming for them. "Admiral, there are children on those worlds, families, scientists and artists and dreamers who had nothing to do with the political decisions made by their governments." "I know, Captain, but we also have to consider our own people. If we reveal our defensive capabilities to stop the Devourers, we expose centuries of classified operations. We show the galaxy that we've been secretly protecting them all along. What happens then? Do they thank us, or do they fear us even more?" The moral complexity of the situation weighed on David like a physical burden. Humanity had the knowledge and technology to stop the Devourers, but using it would reveal that they had been secretly manipulating galactic affairs for centuries. The same alien governments that had voted to contain humanity would learn that humans had been their secret guardians all along. "What are your orders, Admiral?" David asked. Santos was quiet for a long moment, staring at something off-screen. When she looked back, her eyes showed the burden of command. Continue monitoring. Do not engage. Do not communicate with alien vessels. We're still evaluating our options. The transmission ended, leaving David alone with the weight of knowledge. He knew how to stop the devourers. His ship carried weapons, systems that could disrupt their energy matrices and send them back into hibernation. But using those weapons would save a galaxy that had rejected humanity's friendship. Meanwhile, on thousands of worlds, alien civilizations continued their daily lives, unaware that ancient machines were cataloging their worlds for consumption. Children played in crystal gardens on Zephyr Prime, not knowing that scouts were measuring the energy content of their planet's life forms. Scientists worked late in laboratories on Academic Station 7, oblivious to the fact that their research. Notes were being analyzed by entities that viewed knowledge itself as a consumable resource. The galaxy had asked humanity to leave them alone. Soon, they would learn whether humanity would honor that request, even in the face of universal extinction. In the deep space between stars, geometric nightmares continued their silent reconnaissance, preparing to feast on the civilizations that had forgotten the ancient hunger lurking in the dark between galaxies. And somewhere in human space, military commanders debated whether to save a galaxy that had never known it needed saving.